So we're going to be there. And so it looks like we're good. Looks like we're good. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on both Crowdcast and YouTube. Now, those of you who are here in the Crowdcast audience, just to kind of let y'all know how this all works. If you're on Crowdcast, make sure to ask questions. Now, this is my first stream of the season, so y'all be patient with me because I'm having to kind of get all this set up here. So as far as that goes, thank you. Jason says this is peak entertainment. Now, if you're in Crowdcast, there should be on the side, you see a little question mark. It's Q&A, okay? So I've got some things here. When is it going to start? We'll go ahead and answer that question, okay? So Ryuzo, it has already started, okay? When is it going to start? It's already started. So as far as that goes, we haven't gotten any relevant questions yet. I have no idea like what we got here. Okay, so I don't know what this is talking about here. So I really don't know. But with that, how many of these meetings are we going to do? Morgan, I have not finished making my schedule, so I appreciate that. Now, some of y'all are seeing you can upvote questions. So what this allows me to do, it allows me to see who is in here and what's going on there. Now, we do have a Reformation focus today, okay? We have a Reformation focus. I thought we'd go ahead and start with the Reformation because all eyes are on the Vatican today, so we would just go ahead and do that. But I'm going to be you can pretty much count on me doing Saturday and Sunday night next weekend, but I will release, again, Instagram is at Tom Richey, and I will be shouting out during this session. So y'all, oh, wow, we've got a lot of folks here. Graydon, PR333T. Oh gosh, is that D.D4Y? Is that Diddy? Is Diddy in the chat? Perla, very good, thank you. Jackson and Liam and E. Christensen, Alex and D3 Sarah, Lucas Roheen 09. We've got Kat, we've got Emily and Erica's. We've got Reagan and Ravella and JB. We've got a lot of folks. Alex 333. Okay, so we got a lot of folks here. I always announce the broadcast on Instagram. So with that, let's go ahead, and I can also do polls here. Now maybe it will be a little bit too soon, but I'm really, speaking of Instagram, if y'all are on Instagram, y'all seen this. Let me just go ahead and put a poll out there, ladies and gentlemen. That we've just, there's kind of an urgent question here. And, with that, we're just going to go ahead and ask the question. Everybody's asking. So I've got a poll up there. We got the poll visible here. If you're here in the Crowdcast, did Vice President J.D. Vance kill the Pope? A lot of people are curious. What do we think? Oh, gosh, yeah, that's about 90% yes. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got the chat going on. A lot of stuff happens in the chat. But again, the questions, the Q&A is really where it's at because I can see who's out there. Now, should we take notes? Okay. Now, the thing is, I would say you should pretty much, taking notes is a good way to do things. I would say that it's better to write some stuff down. If I say something that you didn't remember, I would urge you to take notes. Yeah, that would be a good thing to do. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would, when it comes to things like this, okay, y'all are asking writing questions. These are more like content driven. Now, I will probably do some things. I'll let y'all know as well. Like I haven't scheduled some things, but I'm likely to do some kind of LEQ workshop or something like that. So if y'all, just let me know. A lot of times I'll charge a little fee for those because those aren't like they're more intensive and work ready, and it's just a better dynamic. But again, what I'm focusing on in something like this is content. Okay, so with that, but I will, we see some people asking about contextualization. Okay, so contextualization is basically something that is not immediately relevant. Okay, it's not immediately relevant, but it's something in the background. It's something I often will say it's lurking. Okay, it is somehow adjacent. Okay, it's somehow adjacent. But then it's not like right there in the time, in the place. Okay, so for example, let's say that we are doing a DBQ or an LEQ about the 30 Years' War. Okay. Now, what would be what we call the natural contextualization? So let me go to the chat and see what people are writing here. When we're thinking about how to contextualize something, let's think about if the DBQ or the LEQ topic is the 30 Years' War. What would we use for contextualization? One thing that I'll note here. Okay, yeah, Mr. D. I think Mr. D. Shout out to Mr. D's class. So glad that he told people to come here tonight. I'm really glad to see that's happening. And so, as far as that goes, the previously on, that's a good way to look at it. When you start looking at your show, I've been watching the 1923 show on the Paramount Plus, and so that's something that every time I see another episode, it says previously on, okay? And that way you can kind of figure that out. So if we're thinking about, shout out to Mr. Watson, Mr. Collins, Mr. Wassinger, let's see, we got Miss Piercy over there, Mr. Zera the Goat, Miss Cruz. Oh yeah, big shout out. Y'all talking about Joyce Cruz? She's been supporting me a long time. So if we're writing about the 30 Years' War, I might go into like Martin Luther, the Peace of Augsburg, okay? Whoever reigns his religion. Now, speaking of, I've got a little handout that I want y'all to y'all note. Now, if y'all are watching on YouTube, the handout should be in the description for the video. So if you just check there, you see a link. And I'm going to share with y'all. This is the newest handout that I've made here. Let me see. How do I? What I'm going to do? I'm just going to put it in the chat here. Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat for right now. And we'll go ahead, and this is something, or you can go to just tomrichey.net/blog. So as far as that goes, let me go ahead and present. I know there's a better way to share a file, but I just forgot, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go on the screen here, and if we're thinking about the 30 Years' War, for example, so let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. So let's go ahead and do that. And with that, now I'll mention I've got an app, Romulus Euro. It is now free. I made this app with some partners about 10 years ago. The app market has changed a good bit. It's just a little trivia app. If you've got an iPhone, if you go to the App Store and you just type in Romulus Euro, it's a free app, okay? And it's just trivia. You can go and you can pick, like, do you want to look at the Renaissance, the Reformation, the Age of Absolutism? I made it a long time ago. It's free. If it's something that helps you, give it a good review. But it's a nice little handy app that you can just go over the finer points. Now, the questions are not stimulus-based. They're trivia questions. The whole point is to help you on a DBQ or an LEQ or an SAQ, where you have to come up with the specific evidence. So really, it's a little review app that focuses on trivial knowledge. I think it could be something helpful to you. So with that, if we're writing about the 30 Years' War, now this is my newest handout on religious toleration in the Reformation era, and there are a lot of different things going on. So religious uniformity in the new monarchies, whether that's Spain or England. Now with that, if we were writing about the 30 Years' War, Spain and England probably would not be the best contextualization. The best contextualization is probably going to be the Holy Roman Empire or the French Wars of Religion. So I've got here England, the Netherlands, the French Wars of Religion, and local rule in the Holy Roman Empire. So I would say that your natural contextualization would come from one of these places, because one of the things about France during the 30 Years' War, the French decide, well, we're going to get involved on the side of the Protestants because it's more important to the state that the Habsburgs be weakened than the cause of Catholicism in Europe. Now, this is what we call politique. I had a student one time that called it politique. But we see here, we could go into what happened during the French Wars of Religion. Henry IV's Edict of Nantes would be a great contextualizing piece showing that, look, in France, which this is something that's very interesting about the Edict of Nantes, it's the only major thing that I'm aware of where a ruler says that, in my kingdom, this religious group, which is a religious minority, can practice their religion openly as long as they're in certain areas. Okay, now they couldn't go to Paris, the Huguenots couldn't go to Paris, but there were certain cities and towns and even a few areas where there were Huguenot noblemen, where Protestantism could be practiced in the Kingdom of France. Now, of course, Louis XIV, he's like, enough of that, right? But the Edict of Nantes and the idea of politique that we see the 30 Years' War changes a good bit because of the entry of the French. So the French Wars of Religion would be a great way to contextualize that. Now, the other one, if we think about the Peace of Augsburg and how Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, tried to keep the Holy Roman Empire as a one religion state. But as far as that goes, that didn't really work. So you've got the Peace of Augsburg. Whoever reigns, his religion. And remember, in the Peace of Augsburg, they could claim Catholicism or Lutheranism. Now, then when we think about the 30 Years' War, remember they expand that, allowing princes to choose Calvinism as their religion, because the electors of Brandenburg, the future kings of Prussia, they were Calvinist. And so Calvinism becomes an acceptable religion. So if we're writing about the 30 Years' War, those would be, I think, the best kind of contextualization. And one thing that I'll say about contextualization is I think about it like a Cartesian plane, that 4-quadrant thing you use in whatever math that is, geometry or something. So with that, I call it the proximity relevance axis. Okay, so if we're thinking about the proximity relevance axis, what we've got on this proximity relevance axis, that usually things that are closer to the time are going to be most relevant. So usually for contextualization, look at the year and go immediately before, just like maybe within the 30 to 50 years before that, find something. Now, contextualization always needs to be relevant. So if we're thinking about like Henry VIII in England or Philip II in Spain, it's got close proximity time-wise to the 30 Years' War, but it's not extremely relevant. Okay, it's not extremely relevant. So as far as that goes, we got we got a few folks in the chat there. So with that, I don't want to spend the whole night talking about writing, but we'll go ahead once in a while. We can put in a writing piece, but again, it's kind of like it's not the setting for that exactly, really. So as far as that goes. Let's go ahead and see. We've got a few folks on YouTube. Politicue. Yep, we got somebody. Yeah, I had a student literally called that Politicue. So going from that, now I would say I don't like to do predictions. Okay, people ask, what's the DBQ going to be? What's the LEQ? Really, it's not. I think that you need to be studying. Okay, one of the things that you want to avoid is thinking this is going to be that, like you're going to Vegas or something like that. That's not what you're doing. Try to be as prepared if you're prepared for the exam across the board, then you're going to be fine. So the DBQ, it's a process. The LEQ, odds are one of those three is going to be something that you can at least get 2 or 3 points on, which is going to make it so at least you don't fail the exam because of that. So with that, if we start studying last minute, I tell you what, which y'all are here more than a week before the exam. So one thing about this is my advice to everybody. AP Euro, all 9 units are equally counted, okay? So the first thing that I tell people as individuals, what do you find most interesting? Do you find, what you want to do is you want to find some kind of balance between something, the best stuff to study is stuff that you find interesting and you don't know a lot about. Because if you're studying stuff that you find really interesting, but you know everything about it, if you're like, hey, I know Peter the Great was 6'7", he tore out people's beards, he reduced the power of the Russian Orthodox Church, and he went to Amsterdam and England, built a big navy, the table of ranks, had the different, if you know everything about Peter the Great, then you don't have to study Peter the Great. But if there's stuff that you don't know, if you're thinking like, hey, you know, John Calvin seemed like an interesting guy. Like, I want to study a little bit about Calvinism. Any topic on the exam has really about the same chance of getting on any individual exam. So if you think like the French Revolution, gosh, that was confusing, but I thought it was really interesting, then go and study that. Okay. So now the thing is, if you study stuff that you find is boring, then you're probably going to be in a situation where you're going to lose focus, you're going to get put to sleep. So as far as that goes, like Chris Freiler's AP Achiever. I tell you what, if you go to Amazon.com, he doesn't pay me anything to say this. I just think this is the best book for AP Euro. Chris Freiler's AP Achiever is hands down going to be the best book. And I would say open this up. You can't go wrong. You can get this for, I think, for around $25 on Amazon. Just look at the table of contents and think about, like, what do you want to study? Because if you study stuff that you find interesting, then you're going to have a more productive study session. And if you study stuff that bores you, you're not going to want to study. You see? So you want to study as much as you can, and you want to get the most out of your study time. So I don't think that it matters as much what you're studying as much that you are studying and you're getting something out of it. Now, speaking of, I'm not getting anything out of recommending Chris Freiler's AP Achiever, other than, if y'all do better on the exam and y'all tell people, hey, Tom Richey recommended a really good prep book to me. But yeah, it's actually the only book that I ever recommend is Chris Freiler's AP Achiever. And so with that, let's see what I've got here. We've got a few other folks. It looks like, IDK, Kirall. Gosh, we got a lot of y'all. Yasmin, we've got Max and Wyatt. We've got Rather Laney. We've got Guara, M29 underscore, Nina and Fooey and Nick Gig. I see what y'all did there. Now y'all try to get me to read stuff. Y'all think, oh, he's gonna read it. No, that did not happen. Okay, so yeah, they tried to get me to say something. Tyler with a 3. All right, ladies and gentlemen, great. Thank y'all for the Instagram follows. So how much do these usually last? Usually when I'm broadcasting, it can be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. I actually can't tell you for sure exactly when I'll wrap this up. Just like I told y'all, open this book, see what you find interesting. As long as I'm having a good time, I'll keep doing this for a little while, but usually somewhere between 60, 75, 90 minutes, something like that. No, Perla, it's never too late. Okay. It is never too late to start studying. In fact, I divide AP studiers into 3 groups: 2 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days. Okay. And you can see that, there are students that 2 months away, they are studying for the exam. Now, a lot of y'all have missed that boat, okay? But you're more than a week away from the exam. You've got 2 weekends to be productive and study. So no, it is not too late. There are 12 days left only. Okay, let's watch that grammar, mechanics, and punctuation. Okay, turn that capitalization on there. But thank you so much for your question, Perla. Thank you. Okay, Ariana, thank you so much. Okay, so I tell you what, thank you so much for asking me a content question. I tell you, it's like, again, I do writing sessions, and I'll let y'all know when I'm doing writing sessions. Again, a lot of times I'll charge a little bit for it, not a lot, but because it's more work oriented. But it's like, look, we're here to talk about what we learned, right? Lutheranism and Calvinism. Okay, I need to make a handout. That'll be the next Reformation oriented handout, or one of them. So one thing that we'll note here is that the Catholic Church, okay, has a formula for salvation. If we think about the Catholic Reformation, I'm going to work backwards on this. I'm going to contextualize, right? Let's put Luther and Calvin in their proper context. Okay, so let me just run over here, and I've got a lecture on this. I call it in my lecture the Counter Reformation. Note that the Counter Reformation and the Catholic Reformation, they're basically talking about the same thing, because when we think about the Catholic Reformation, one of them, we call it the Catholic Reformation. We're thinking about the Catholic Church's internal reforms. And then the Counter Reformation, there's the piece that's against Protestantism. Now, speaking of, the Catholic Church and the Pope's authority and all that, okay, so 82% of you believe that Vice President Vance killed the Pope. 1776, though, wow, that is something. Those are the real Americans there, huh? 1776. Let me get a screenshot of that just so I can see. Oh gosh, y'all changed it. I swear it was 1776. We're saying no. Okay, like those were the Americans right there, right? So as far as that goes, yeah. So we got about 4 out of 5 of you think that J.D. Vance killed the Pope. It's just a burning question, right? I mean, that's the biggest question there. Y'all seen those memes where it's like the last thing the Pope sees, like that inflated J.D. Vance head? And all that, may Pope Francis rest in peace. We're not trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. But those are some great memes. All right. So going into this, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the Catholic Reformation and what's going on there. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen. I'm going to put some slides up there for you. And so let's go ahead and there we go. So the Catholic Reformation, and again, I called it, back before they had all these, all these letters and numbers and AP Euro, the Counter Reformation, which again, that's what we got here. Like if we look it up, if we go to the Wikipedia, Catholic Reformation, also known as the Counter Reformation. Okay, so these are just 2 ways to refer to the same thing. And so with that, basically Newton, if we go into the scientific revolution, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So basically you had Luther, Calvin, Henry, all kind of saying their thing. So the Council of Trent is a big part. It's the church council that was called to address what was going on during the Reformation. And during that council, you have, first of all, an affirmation of Catholic doctrine. Okay, thank you very much, Bailey Worth and Jazz _Cruz. I tell you what, they really got your your name there. So as far as that goes, we'll see what we've got there. Christopher that period underscore is really a big thing now. Okay, thank y'all for the follows there. Affirmation of Catholic doctrine. The Council of Trent changes absolutely nothing about Catholic beliefs, okay? But they are open to reforming church practices. So when we think about the affirmation of Catholic doctrine, the Catholic Church has 3 sources of authority, okay? First of all, there's, of course, the scriptures, okay? That Catholic beliefs, like if you ask a Catholic priest, what Catholic beliefs contradict the Bible? The Catholic priest would say none of them. Okay, no, not a single Catholic belief contradicts the Bible. Like a Catholic would not say that, well, the Bible says this, but we believe this. But the thing is, the difference between the way that a Catholic and a Protestant describe their their beliefs is, on one hand, you've got scripture, and then now you've also got tradition. Okay, so what have Catholic bishops and Catholic theologians believed in the past? So you take scripture and you also look at church tradition. Now, there's also what they call the magisterium, the teaching authority of the Pope and the bishops. So you've got the scriptures, the tradition, and then the Pope's teaching authority. Now, to Catholics, there is there's no contradiction between any of these. All of these are in absolute harmony. Now, of course, Luther and Calvin, like Protestants, they believe what's called sola scriptura, that the Bible should inform Christian doctrines and that traditions and teaching authority should not be considered. And Luther called this, what he calls the priesthood of all believers. Stay hydrated, kids, all right? Study season, very, very important. Stay hydrated, get some sleep, take some downtime, all of that stuff, get some exercise. So as far as that goes, what about Luther and Calvin? Now, Luther and Calvin both disagree to some extent when it comes to free will. Now, the Council of Trent, pronounces a lot of anathemas. Okay, so one of the things that that the Catholic Church, let me see what I've got here. Let's see, yeah, if anyone shall say that since Adam's sin, the free will of man is lost and extinguished, or that it is a thing with a name only, yea, a title without a reality, a figment, let him be anathema. Let him burn in hell. Let him be condemned, whatever, right? That we had enough of this, you know. So with that the Catholic Church says that, okay, Adam and Eve sinned. They passed that down. But in Catholic belief, baptism washes away that original sin. And somebody, the Christian, is free to act however they want. That's why Catholics believe that salvation is your faith in God's grace, but supplemented by your good works. The Catholics say that a Christian who does not do good works is not a Christian. Okay, that that basically your behavior shows where your where your mind and your heart are. So as far as that goes, that's the Catholic position. Now Luther wrote about the bondage of the will. It goes back and forth with Erasmus. And Luther believed, the reason why Luther believed in justification by faith alone, without any consideration for good works. Luther did not believe that baptism washes away original sin. So Luther believed that people have a natural tendency to sin. And so you can have a sincere faith, but still sin. He said, simul justus et peccator, simultaneously saint and sinner. So, but for Luther, you at least had to have a sincere faith. Whereas for Calvin, this is 100% about God's grace and predestination. So Luther doesn't believe that your eternal salvation is predestined. Luther believes that free will is inhibited. Calvin says it doesn't play any role at all whatsoever, okay? But one thing we want to note too, though, is the Catholic teaching on free will, which is part of the reason why Catholics say that if you don't do good works, you're probably going to hell, because that means that you're not really a sincere Christian. So with that, let's go ahead and think about now the Peace of Augsburg. Reese, I think I've already answered that in some extent, but basically Charles V, and again, my newest handout on the Reformation, which I've shared in the chat. If you're on YouTube, it's in the video description, and it's also on my website. If you just go to tomrichey.net/blog, you should be able to access this. But when I talk about the religious toleration in the Holy Roman Empire, that Charles V was a devout Catholic. He was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he's a devout Catholic, and he didn't like Luther or his doctrines. But a lot of princes in the Holy Roman Empire did. Now, one thing we want to note, Voltaire said that the Holy Roman Empire is neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. And that's pretty much true. Okay, so don't think about Charles V like he's some kind of emperor. He is an emperor, right? But he's more of an emperor kind of thing. Okay, kind of like the Church of England is Protestant. Like Elizabeth says that the Church of England will be a Protestant church, but it will continue to have some Catholic elements, that they'll have stained glass. The clergy will wear vestments. There will be bishops and archbishops. So the Church of England is a church that's separate from the Catholic Church, and there are some differences, but there aren't really that many differences compared to other Protestant groups. So with that, Charles V is not an emperor with absolute power. He's just basically got the first seat at the table. And so a lot of the princes in the Holy Roman Empire, such as Frederick, the Elector of Saxony, who protected Martin Luther, they wanted to be Protestant. And so the Peace of Augsburg, whoever reigns, his religion. Okay, so, and remember, they could choose between Lutheranism or Catholicism. It wasn't some kind of full menu. Now, remember, when we look at the Peace of Westphalia, then we see that they can also choose Calvinism. They've got a third option. Now, another thing about the Peace of Westphalia in the 1648, important year. Yeah, should we write this down? Yes. If you didn't know that, yes. 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, and 1648 ends the Reformation era. Like, we're done fighting wars over religion. And so one thing that we see in the Peace of Westphalia is no matter what the local religion is, one thing that we see here is the freedom of private worship. So if you are a Catholic living in a in a community that is governed by a Protestant, and even if there's a ban on building Catholic churches, nobody's going to come into your home and mess with you. Now, this is kind of similar if we look at what's going on in the Dutch Republic, or what we know as the Netherlands. Now, one thing we want to note about this, a lot of times we hear about, oh, they were so religiously tolerant in the Netherlands. On a practical level, yes. But we want to understand that, yeah, Catholics, Jews, non-Calvinist Protestants, they could worship however they wanted to, but as long as they did so in private. Like you couldn't during the Reformation era, Jews in Amsterdam, they could have a synagogue. It just couldn't be recognizable as a synagogue from the outside. Catholics could have a church, but that church from the outside looks like another row house. So it's one of those things that in Amsterdam, you could be whatever religion you wanted, but the Dutch Reformed Church was the recognized church and the only church that had any standing. And if you wanted to be someone in the government, you had to be part of the Dutch Reformed Church. So yeah, the Dutch were very chill in the sense that they allowed freedom of worship, but it was more behind closed doors. So again, now the Peace of Augsburg said whoever reigns his religion, and that that was basically it, that the local princes would choose what religion they were going to have there. So with that, now, let's see, Jackson, great question, but out of period, okay? Out questions right now. Lucas, two, be in this together. Kevin, JS, wrap it up. Okay, yeah, y'all told me not to look at the chat, right? So as far as that goes, oh, where'd the stream go? Frozen. Y'all let me know when I'm back. Okay, so y'all let me know when I'm back. Okay. All right. So with that, we're back. We're back. Okay, got it. Okay. So one of the things, if it's frozen, sometimes refresh your screen. Since I'm back, it sounds like we froze up a little bit. Mr. Tazik. Okay, so I'm back, twin. There's Jackson Lucier, and back guy named Oliver is doxing me. Okay. Oh, doxing. So so I'm getting doxed evidently. So with that, oh my goodness, shout out Mr. Lane. All right. So let's see here. Yeah. So I'm getting doxed here in the chat. How about that? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, all right, so let's take a look at what we've got here, and let's see here. Do I have any tips for memorizing important people? One of the things that we'll note here is when we think about memorizing important people. Let's see, is it Gage has that? All right, so memorizing important people, one thing I'd recommend is that Romulus Euro app, okay? The Romulus Euro app. We got EM Productions on YouTube. We've got Rom and Emmy and wow, is this I knew a Noah Taylor back when, but he took the exam years ago, so it's probably a different Noah Taylor out there. Thank you for everybody that's on YouTube. I appreciate that y'all are watching as well, and want to let y'all know y'all are loved too. So the Romulus Euro app, if you've got an iPhone, if you've got access to the App Store, then it's a free app. Again, it's something that I started it about a decade ago with some partners, and we sold it for a long time for like $2.99. Now it's a free app. And again, this is just a very good thing that you can do for trivial knowledge. Okay, so if you're just having trouble with people, now there's also like Quizlet, all that kind of stuff there. So with that, but going from there, let's see over the religious wars. Okay, so if we're going over the religious wars, yep, it looks like here. So let's see here. So religious wars and the 30 Years' War. Okay. So as far as that goes, you've got the religious wars you've got are the French Wars of Religion and the 30 Years' War. Now, the French Wars of Religion, this is part of the reason why I made this handout, is so that you've got all of the stuff there that's just kind of in front of you. I'll do a formal lecture on this sometime. I will, now those of you who are taking APUSH next year, I do plan to, do an APUSH series coming up. So y'all just make sure you follow me into APUSH if you're a 10th grader about to take APUSH. I'll be here for you. So the French Wars of Religion, we want to know that there were Huguenots, right? You had French Calvinists who included influential nobles in southern France, okay? So the Huguenots were a religious minority, but they were more numerous in the south of France. We've got, thank you, Aylin Tiffany, Esther Sand 323, and Jansen Minton. Thank you very much there. So we've got, thank y'all for the follows on Instagram. And so basically, now you could get into Catherine de Medici, St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, but I really decided just to note here, Henry of Navarre, Henry IV, okay? So Henry of Navarre was a Protestant nobleman. He was someone who was a Huguenot from Navarre, which is like kind of on that France-Spain border there, and he's coronated as Henry IV. Now, he tried initially to rule as a Protestant, and he realized the French are predominantly Catholic. They are not going to accept a Protestant king, okay? Just not going to happen. And so Henry joins this faction known as the Politiques, okay? So Henry was a politique, and so he converted to Catholicism, and he allegedly said, Paris is worth a mass. If I can be king, I'll go to mass, okay? I'll go to a Catholic mass, even though I'm Protestant. So what he does there is for his country, and to unite the country, he becomes a Catholic. Now, remember that the French Wars of Religion are ended with the Edict of Nantes, which, creates that situation where, again, as long as they're in certain locations, then the Protestants in France, the Huguenots, can worship openly, okay? So as far as that's concerned, I'm just making a note here. The 30 Years' War, I've got a lecture on the 30 Years' War, so y'all want to know that is there. And so we do want to know 1618 to 1648. That's important, especially 1648, because that is what ends the Reformation era with the Treaty of Westphalia. And warfare becomes more dynastic. No two European powers are ever going to have a war again about religion, okay? So this is wrapping up the Reformation era. It starts with the Holy Roman Empire. Now, when I say background, this is contextualization. Previously on warfare during the Reformation over religion, we know that Martin Luther and the Peace of Augsburg, remember, they got to choose between Lutheran or Catholic. They didn't have the right to choose to be Calvinist. That was not seen at the time as an acceptable religion back in 1555. Cuius regio, eius religio. The spell check doesn't speak Latin, evidently, but whoever reigns, his religion. Now, it had 4 phases: the Bohemian, the Danish, the Swedish, and the French phase. Now, I can't tell y'all to do this, but I've had students over the years that they figured out that they're actually, a student showed me one time where they written on their study guide, they wrote curse words that get progressively more harsh as it keeps going. But as far as that goes, it starts off as a local and religious conflict, and it gets progressively more continental and political, okay? So we see at first, it is a war between Catholics and Protestants in the Holy Roman Empire. And then it becomes more of a continental war for power. So, in the Bohemian phase, of course, that's the modern day Czech Republic. Now, that's something that if you don't remember the defenestration of Prague, just go home, like don't take the exam. If you can't remember somebody being thrown out a window and falling 70 feet, then just don't even bother, okay? Everybody should remember this. Some dude got thrown out, I guess some dudes, right, got thrown out of a window. and basically survived the fall. Now, of course, the Catholics said that the angels helped them, and the Protestants said, well, they fell into a big pile of like, yeah. So with that, the Catholics are doing pretty well in the Bohemian and Danish phases, okay? But then we have the Swedish phase and Gustavus Adolphus, of Sweden. Now, Lutheranism, let's note here that if we think about a map of the Protestant Reformation, okay? So Europe, Reformation map, okay? So if we're looking at something like that, we can see that Europe during the Reformation is, if we're looking at the Lutherans, let's see, yeah, so here, we're going to go ahead and put this on the screen here. And so Lutheranism is very prominent in northern Germany and Scandinavia, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, which one thing, and I don't know, somebody, probably not the first one, but Norway is north, Sweden is south, Denmark is detached, and Iceland is an island. Okay. So northern Germany and Scandinavia, basically this, Lutheranism becomes the religion of the Baltic Sea, basically. And so, Gustavus Adolphus decides that he's going to go in and he's going to help the Protestants. So Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden, who from a military perspective as well, often known as the father of modern warfare, because, they used cannons in battles, but Gustavus Adolphus figured out, like, I can move the cannons around during the battle. Okay. So you notice where his cannons here are pointed that way. And then as he makes progress, he turns the cannon. So he figures out, like, hey, we can put these on wheels and we can move them during the battle. Okay, so I mean, very, very successful. But then the French are helping him out. Okay, the French are giving him money, and that's where we see Cardinal Richelieu acting as a politique. Now, Cardinal Richelieu, a cardinal, got that red cap. We're about to see some red cap people out there. And so with that, we got that red cap on. And, the thing is, he's a very high ranking official in the Catholic Church. This is a guy that gets to go in the papal conclave and elect the Pope. But he's saying, look, I'm the first minister of France. When it comes to decisions of the French state, I have to put politics over religion. And this is part of what is ending the Reformation, you see, because the Reformation is about putting religion over unity and politics and that sort of thing. So politique kind of, does it. Oh my goodness, Jackson, I tell you what, Jackson's liking photos over there, including my book. Those of you followed me on Instagram, I wrote a book about the Constitution. If you're going to take APUSH or AP Government, think about buying my book, U.S. I'll prove it to you, like that I'm not just sitting here lying to y'all. Yeah, got a copy of it right here. So there's my book. I wrote a book, U.S. Constitution 101. It's on Amazon for like $15. That if you're going to take APUSH or AP Government, this will be some great summer reading for you. So again, I couldn't get through here without plugging my book. So I want to thank my new friend Jackson. You know what? I'm going to follow this guy back. Look at that. He's got he's a sinner. He's sorry for it. Okay, I tell you what, he's fitting right in with the spirit of the Reformation over here. Now, that's another thing about the Reformation. Our friend Jackson, he is, someone who has got his, his Bible verse there. So let's think about this. The role of the printing press in the Reformation. That's something that's going to be important. Now, we've already talked about the Peace of Westphalia, all that. France got involved on the side of the Catholics, again, because it was better for the French state to weaken the Habsburgs than it was to be in a, better for the French state to weaken the Habsburgs than to help the Catholics. So with that, the printing press, okay, so Luther Luther is coming up here, with the printing press. A century before, there was a guy named Jan Hus, who was kind of like the Martin Luther of his day, but it was before the printing press. He was in Bohemia. He got really popular. It looks like we love Nate. We love Nate. Okay, glitchy. Richie, not my fault. Okay, so with that, I tell you what. So all right, got that, got there. Not my fault. I always hear that in Sexy Red's voice anytime somebody says that. But with that, now I got that song in my head. So going, I'm easily distracted if y'all hadn't caught on to that. So going from there, when we think about the printing press, that Luther's able to get his ideas out there, but also the printing press is something that really changes Christianity, because whether I go to a Catholic priest, whether I go to a Protestant pastor, if I were to ask like any member of the Christian clergy, how often should I read the Bible? They tell me every day. You should read the Bible every day. Well, we go back before the printing press, and this is going to be something that if we go before the printing press, then that's like nobody could read the Bible, right? That it was only in Latin, and there were low literacy rates. Okay, there were low literacy rates before the Renaissance and the printing press. And so basically, we think about the Reformation, that it changes Christianity so much, because we think about my new friend here. We got Graydon Williams. Graydon Williams. He is, I tell you, he is going and liking those photos there. But as far as that goes, when somebody has a Bible verse on their Instagram, I mean, that's basically the printing press and the Reformation, which has created a situation where most people can't tell you how many Bibles they have in their house, because again, it's just everybody, most everybody's literate, literacy rates skyrocket, and the Bible becomes part of the Christian experience. Even the Catholics, like, let me look that up. When did the Catholic Church authorize the first vernacular Bible? Eventually they caught on. Okay, so we see there did not authorize, so let's see. I don't know when they did that, but at a certain point, the Catholic Church says, "Hey, we're going to, let's see, when did the Catholic Church authorize, translations of the Bible?" The AI is not always as smart as we'd like it to be, right? So okay, well, never mind. I'm gonna have to answer that later on, but just note, as far as that goes, okay. YU18 and AP Euro. Oh my goodness. Hey, y'all be, I probably could have somebody moderate the chat at some point. But y'all look like y'all are having fun out there. So late. Oh, it's about time to wrap up, isn't it? My voice is telling me, hey, you got to teach in the morning, Richie. So let's see what we got here. So we definitely want to look at the Enlightenment, right? Peyton, I'm going to remind everybody, I've got a full lecture. If you want to go in depth on the 30 Years' War, more than I have here, go ahead and take a look at that video that I've got. It's about a 15-minute lecture on the 30 Years' War. Remember to watch the ads, okay? Half the ad or 30 seconds, I think, is where I get my, 2 or 3 cents or something like that. So are these going to be recorded anywhere? Yes. As far as that goes, these sessions will be available on my YouTube channel. And those of you who are on Crowdcast, y'all can log in, and they will, after a few minutes, it's got to archive it. But yes, these sessions will be available later. And it looks like I definitely need to do a session on the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. Okay, so as far as that goes, somebody's got me on their story. We got VB Cena. All right, we love you, Tom Richey. All right, I love your entire class, VB period Cena. All right, so with that, will I be making other unit reviews? Yes. Okay, so there will be other broadcasts. Remember, each of these, has kind of a thing that it's focusing on. But those of you who are on Crowdcast, y'all should be getting a notification when I schedule. If you're following me on Instagram, y'all are going to be able to see that as well. So that's something we will be doing more reviews. Again, it's not so much that it's more important to, what you study. It's that it's important to study and to study things that have a chance of showing up on the exam. Laney, as far as your question here, take a few more study questions here. Looking over notes, watching videos, something else. Everybody has a different way that it sticks. So now the thing is, make sure if you're watching videos, you're actively watching videos, you're taking notes just like you would during a regular lecture or something like that. That's going to be important, okay? That you are, you're writing things down that you don't know, you're looking at them again, flashcards, videos, books. You're going to have to learn what's best for you. And this is going to help you when you get into college. Like, it's really important. Like, I can't tell you how to study. And the reason that I teach history, part of it is because I basically, pay attention in class and I just pick it up. Now, if I go to like math or something like that, whew. But the thing is, I can't necessarily tell you what's going to work for you. But quizzes, the Romulus app, of course, POV, that's my app. But the nice thing about it, I'm not making any money off Romulus anymore. I just got it out there for free. So go ahead and try it and see if it helps you remember, specific content. That could be something to be helpful for you. So as far as that goes, I think that we are kind of in a position to wrap up. Let me go ahead and we will look at the Renaissance at some point, I'm sure. Let's go ahead, and Mr. Good is here. It's always good to see Mr. Good. And with that, let's see here. Do we have any shout outs on the way out? Anything like that? I'll look at Instagram one more time. So we'll just take a look here and know any quizzes, something to be useful. You know what? I need to remember. I need to remember some things. I was hoping to make. Now, if anybody ever makes like a Kahoot or something that's decent and they want to like share it, I'll think about putting it up on the screen. Shout out to Mr. Lane again. Skylar, we are getting a 1. Don't come in here talking like that, Milan, Milan, whatever we got here. Mr. Lazar. All right. So yeah, I see Mr. Lazar's name a lot. That is not a new name for me. Thank you so much. And again, Mr. Tazik, the GOAT, Mr. Burke, Miss Smith. Oh my goodness, Mr. Yurchak, Cammie Johnston is out there. Miss Wakefield. Okay. So as far oh my goodness. Yeah, y'all, some of y'all might want to turn off the chat. Mr. Zera, Mr. Short, looks like Mr. Tazik is still the GOAT 30 seconds later. Miss Chippentine. All right. And of course, we got Mr. Good. We got Miss Smith. All right. Mr. Barabi, Mr. Barabi, Miss Godwin. All right, good to see Mr. Crowell. All right, Mr. Burke, Miss Burke, MRE Burke. It's like a meal ready to eat in the military. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the late Ron Hopkins. Okay, Miss Cruz. We always love Miss Cruz over here, don't we? Papa Ron Hopkins. Okay, so we got that out. Mr. Battelle. We've got, yep, I think that I've got everybody here. Miss Godwin, if we didn't mention her earlier, Miss LaFrance, Miss Osborne. Now, another thing I'm going to be able to tell y'all, I'm looking forward to this. The past few years, they've had the AP Euro exam in the morning. And so now they've got it in the afternoon. So I'm planning on broadcasting at 9 a.m. Eastern the morning of the exam. So I'm going to be, broadcasting for several nights before the exam. I'm going to be letting y'all know all of that stuff out there. Miss Britt, Pope Francis, R.I.P. He's in the loving arms of Harambe. And, as far as that goes, that's, I will do this again. We will do several more of these. Miss Fortin, Pope Francis again, we've got Miss Harros, Miss Fortin. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, remember that handout. You can either go to the description in YouTube, tomrichey.net/blog. The Romulus app this year is free. Okay, so that's free. And I will be back with some more AP Euro review. Y'all are a great bunch. Looking forward to working with y'all again later. It's always a pleasure.